Good morning, everyone. Good day, good hello, whatever it is. I am Justin Donson. We're painting our way through Japan. So I'm not actually in Japan. I don't have that kind of cash, but we are hitting up Google Earth, checking out what we can find in the beautiful parts of Japan. I am currently, I think this is going to be our last episode in Tanegashima Island, which is in the very south of Japan. Beautiful place. Beautiful place. Let's go over here, have a little look at our reference. So today we're doing something different. I found this beautiful place in Tanegashima Island. And, yeah. But we're going to do something that I sometimes do when I'm painting out in the wild is sometimes I'll have a painting that I've already started and I don't know exactly what I'm going to do with it. And so this time, this is exactly what we're doing. I've got this painting, which is kind of a... Ooh, here we go. Uh-oh. My cameras aren't... Here, I need to kind of reset these guys. There we go. So, now you can see it. Okay. So, this is a painting that I did. I kind of just was scribbling, using my intuition, just putting down paint. I didn't really know exactly what I was going to do. So, I've done it, and now I'm going to bring it out into the wild. At least that's my analog. But I found this place in Tanegashima Island that I think is just going to give some life to it, give a little vitality. Let's see. Danae says, "Am I finally on time for live stream?" Absolutely, you are. Thank you for joining. Anastasia says, "May I ask what camera you're using? Greetings from Germany." I am actually using a couple of iPhones that I've hooked up to my computer. They seem to be running a little slow today. I don't know why. So let me figure that out before we go any further. This is gonna make it freak out for a second, I think. Okay, I think it's gonna be okay. So, let me know if that ever becomes a problem. Get the jacket off. This is getting real. And he says the colors are already so nice. Thank you. So I decided to use a bit more of a limited palette for this one. It's gonna be really cool. Really cool. I mean, like socially cool, but mostly I mean temperature-wise. Lots of blues and greens. G'day, Flaming Galah. Lulu says, "Can I show the painting closely?" Okay, let's have a look. Here we go. Here's a little more of a close-up. Yeah. So far it's really just abstract strokes. They don't mean very much. I think I've gotten to the point where we have some rocks, some trees. That's where we're up to so far. Here's our big overview. So one thing that I've decided that I definitely am going to do. Dang it. If only... Here, I need to get this. If only my cameras were playing nice. And now they are. There we go. Actually, nice and smooth. That's good. So, here we go. I'm going to pull it out here. So the painting comes out a little bit farther. It's going to be a landscape. I mean, you know, it's a landscape, but it's going to be in landscape mode. And then I'm going to be pulling in this rock. This rock. It's beautiful. Thank you, Lou. Lou, let me know if I'm getting your names terribly wrong. I'm going to be pulling in this big, beautiful rock that I see, and probably some of the water behind it, maybe. I might choose to keep some plants behind it. But I have a rock painting tutorial coming out soon. Soon, it is coming out, I promise. But man, I love just the way some of these trees are connected. And this one's like basically growing into it. So good. So I'm gonna use that. So let's get to it. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. We are here to chat and paint. So far, mostly I've been using relatively transparent paint to get this. When I'm working abstractly, which is what I've been doing so far, when I'm working relatively abstractly, it's nice to have the different layers that go on top of each other. It's just really nice to... Anastasia says, actually, you're the first person who's able to pronounce my nickname correctly, which is nasty. Nasty. Now I'm messing it up. Everybody else says nasty all the time. Well, that's what I just then said, so I'm terribly sorry. You should phonetically put it out. How did I say it? I was right at one point, apparently. Cindy is now following. Thank you, Cindy. It's good to see you. So, that's what I'm gonna continue transparently working over this side of it, kind of lay in the foundation of everything that I'm doing, and yeah, then we're gonna go from there. We're gonna probably get it a little more opaque, especially for some of the stuff that's more in the foreground. So let's get to it. So I know that I've been using, I think this is what I used to begin with. It's an indigo, an ultramarine, and I had a viridian in there. So that's what I'm going to do to begin with, and some black, probably. So, but this time I know that I'm going to have that rock. It's essentially going to be coming in crossways here, and then pushing back out behind this tree. So let's just do it. Let's just do it. Danae says, do you have any childhood nostalgia tied to your love of nature? I'm sure I do. I know that I spent most of my childhood trying to escape from my family. They're lovely, lovely people. So don't get me wrong, but that's what my childhood was. So I would go out on walks everywhere and just go for walks, giant walks. That was my childhood. Lots of big walks. Okay, so Anastasia is setting it right. The A in nasty is like the Brits say ask. Oh, okay, nasty. Gotcha. Instead of nasty. Yeah. Yeah, like my American associates would say, nasty. Some strange sound going on here. Right, so this rock is going to be coming down here, really just like working major abstractly. Let's get a brush that's just going to do more of the work for me. Peach says, this is beautiful. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. So, we're going to have this rock coming in, and I want to extend it over here, up through this tree, maybe behind. This whole thing is going to have this kind of diagonal rock coming in through it. And I don't know how central that's going to be to the final painting just yet. But I know that shape is going to be really helpful for just tying the piece together. At least in my head, so far it is. And it kind of means that we're looking up a hill as well. So as I'm doing that, I want to just get some shadow in here, kind of like just to begin with, you know, like having that little bit of shadow is always helpful to me to help communicate the form. So I'm still working rather abstractly, like I'm not really thinking about, I'm sort of half thinking about where a shadow would actually be, and then I'm half thinking about how I don't know, kind of what is a beautiful shape? Where do I want the energy to move in this painting? One thing I know I really want is this tree here that's like welded itself into the rock. I want to put it in. Maybe actually I'll transform. No, I'm going to keep this tree here in front. And then this tree here is the one that's kind of going to weld itself into it. And I hope I probably have to do some interesting stuff to make it actually look like it's welding into the rock instead of like coming out from behind it. So I think part of that, and I wonder if I have a closer up look to this. A little bit. Is going to be making sure that some of these roots come down in front of it instead of into it, like that. Ooh. Yeah, so feel free to ask any questions if you have any, guys. We're here to chat and have fun. Make sure I'm seeing everything everyone's saying. All right. Flaming Glasshouse, do you kind of just hop around on Google Maps until you find something you like? Yeah, basically. So I know that I'm going on this little trip up through Japan, right? I know I'm like heading up. So what I did is I spent some time in Yakushima Island and I went around on Google Maps and I was looking around. Now I'm in Tanegashima Island. And so I know the general area that I want to do here and now. And then I'm moving along through there. Zydo says something I don't understand because unfortunately I'm monolingual. Austin says, beautiful work like always. Thank you. The colors you choose for the limited palette makes this piece seem like a nighttime scene to me. You know, I was thinking exactly the same thing. And I don't know how I would accentuate that. And I don't know if I don't know. Because I agree with you. I suppose I don't need to do anything to accentuate it. I just need to accept that that's kind of the direction I was heading. But I suppose we'll see. Because I think so. Danae says, do you do any crafty things? Not a great deal, actually. I don't do a great deal of crafty things. Not because I'd rather not, just because I don't, I think. Alright, so what I want to do now is I have this big rock in here. I think I want to... It looks really uniform. I think it looks a little too uniform, so I'm thinking about how can I... Ooh, how can I come in here and maybe change some of the shape language, or just alter up that shape just enough so it feels a little more natural. And again, I'm not actually paying close attention to what colors I'm using at this point. I'm altering the colors that I'm using because I want there to be some differentiation, just interesting stuff. You know, what can the paint do for me instead of me trying to force into the paint. Let's have a little look. There's so much interesting stuff that I could do. So one really cool thing about this reference is all of this stuff just here, you know, all the little crags and the nooks and the everything there. So let's try and get into that a bit. Oh, I just minimized everything so I can't see what anyone's saying. Peach says, hey Justin, could you tell us what's the difference between scenery art and environment art? That really depends on who you're talking to. So if you're in a entertainment, gaming, design environment, then environment art is more actually an environment artist is a 3D artist. If you're in, man, this camera stopped on me again. I suppose I might have to do this a bit. Okay, if you're in sort of animation, then an environment artist, like I'm doing, is actually called a layout artist. And if you're just a fine artist, they normally call it a landscape artist. But it's all, you know, it's really, there's no single solid thing that we're talking about here. Totally Laddie says, I absolutely love your paintings. Thank you. Dicentratical. I don't know how I'm pronouncing your name either. Says, scenery is often associated with independent assets. Ah, there you go. Objects, and usually to be worked with back into a game or movie. Yeah. So I'm doing some of this stuff, not this one, but I am doing some work for a video game. In fact, just a small plug, it's called Lunafawn. You can check it out. They're in production at the moment, and I think it's going to be really beautiful. But what I'm doing is assets, creating assets, and that's what we'll call that. And then all of the backgrounds that I'm doing, we're just calling background environments. But really, they're just, you know, different names, slightly different things. Bernice says, hey, how long does it take to find your reference on Google Earth? It depends on the day. Some of the earlier stuff, I went all around Tanegashima Island to try and find the right spots. This one actually only took about 10 minutes or so. I knew what I was looking for. I knew that I wanted something that would really fit into this, and so I could reject things pretty quick. But I try not to put too much time into it, because that's a time sink if ever I've seen one. But there's so much beautiful. There's so much beautiful stuff everywhere. So yeah, any suggestions about where I should go after I do Japan? I'll probably be in Japan. And for those of you who haven't really followed on the series, by in Japan, I just mean on Google Earth in Japan for about 6 months. And then I'll release the paintings. Maybe even make a little art book from it all. But then I have to choose where to go next. Danae says, since you play a bunch of instruments, think you'll ever record your own background music? If I somehow earn enough money that I'm not worried about the time that I'm spending on things, yeah, I'd love that. If not, then not. We'll see. Decent Radical says, a landfill. You know, there are landfills everywhere. So it might just happen. You can make it work. Alright, so while we're here, we're kind of figuring out basic blocking in shapes. I know up here I haven't really gotten anything solidified. I want to sort of continue this diagonal idea. And it might not be a direct parallel diagonal, maybe just something like this. But if I could put a tree in here that has a really nice diagonal branch, maybe coming up like this or something, then that would be lovely. That'd be lovely. So let's have a look around. Decent Radical says, yeah, but Japan landfills are filled with discarded game consoles and plastic sushi trays. Why did I say that out loud? I might be quoted on that. Shame. No shame. I suppose we're all allowed our biases. Danae says, so we have to pay for a concept? Fair enough. Well, not paying for a concept. I just need the time. And unfortunately, time... Ooh, that's kind of nice branches coming up like that. Unfortunately, time does equal money. Just as far as, being able to live is concerned. Alright, I love this tree. I love it. This one right here. Now, I don't know that you guys can see it like particularly well here. But we're going for it. I'm going for it. This is just beautiful shapes in here. And I'm doing it relatively loosely, as in lightly, transparently. Kind of putting it in here. At this point, everything is fair game, and everything could be changed, could be turned around. Really early stage painting, and I'd much rather fail at this point in the painting than fail later on. So I'm going to work soft, transparent, get these ideas in and down. Totally says, I love your work. Thank you. I appreciate that. I do appreciate that. And I try. Okay, so this tree is going to provide us with a bit more focus coming in this way, which means, at least in my head, that I'm going to want to do something over here to sort of turn your eye around. So another tree that's going to come in this way, and probably some interesting stuff on this tree to sort of get our attention back around here. That way, sort of without thinking too much, and hopefully when somebody looks at this, they don't think about it. They just feel it. They just kind of process through it. First impressions without thought. But whatever brings you back around into the painting. Adriana says, finally catching a live stream. Thank you. I'm glad that you're here. Anastasia says, do you also like to come up with your own imaginary sceneries? I've tried to paint distance myself from following references and just following my gut with a painting. Yeah, all the time. All the time. I was sharing this over on Twitter earlier. These are kind of just little things that I've done. I try to spend, like a couple of minutes every morning just going through one of these, just doing stuff, pulling out paint, making things happen, hoping that eventually I'll land on some good paintings, and honing skills and everything, just like little things, and from my imagination, and it's always really fun. Always really fun. Anastasia says, Danae, I'd pay for a Justin concert as well. I don't know, you guys haven't heard me play music before. Danae says, I love the idea of painting from Google Earth. I've never heard of anyone else doing that. There are a couple of other people who do that. So if you hit up Twitch, there's Maddie on Twitch. If you just look up Maddie, you'll find her. She does a really good job. Really dedicated to her following that she has there. And wonderful person too. But she does some of this stuff. Okay. So while we're here, I think let's just work a little more abstractly. I'm just going to put colors just stuff. Oh, that's a nice little branch going down there. Decent Radical says, Danae, check out the Facebook virtual plein air. Yeah, so virtual plein air can mean two things, and both are pretty well, actually more represented on virtual plein air, though you're absolutely right, is having, is doing it digitally, right? So most of that stuff is digital, which is great, but they do the same thing. They use Google Earth, or they use photos, or lots of good stuff over there. Danae says, I don't understand Twitch. I made an account but couldn't figure out how to find anything. Yeah, it's pretty well hidden unless somebody is live. You can search usernames and such. Okay, so this is nice. This might be nice here. Having... just creating this like little triangle here is gonna like automatically draw your attention, which is really nice, because I think I'm not gonna put great great value contrasts over here, but I think first you're gonna like look here and then come around to the secondary interest spot here and then just be moved by this tree and come up and around. But I like this, having this secondary interest spot. So if we can kind of, if I were to like put this in a hierarchy of what goes where, I'd have here first, looking here first, coming over here second, and then moving up here third. So we could treat it that way, right? Like, so our most interesting stuff, our most detailed kind of accentuated stuff is going to be here, and then here, and then here. And if I use that in my mind, if I keep that in my mind, which hopefully I will keep in my head, you guys can remind me if I stop forgetting that. Then I'll be able to not get too concerned about having a whole bunch of detail everywhere. Norcag is here. Welcome. It's good to have you here. All right, so let's fill it in just to where it feels at a similar level to everything else. I normally try to have sort of a certain degree of finish everywhere, and then accentuate, and then kind of pull around again and go deeper and deeper in these stages. That way I can leave at any point and kind of be like, yeah, it's done. It's done. Danae says, I don't think I can envision everything you do yet. It's going to be fun watching it appear. Yeah, thank you. Maybe I need to stop talking about it. I just need to do it. Just need to get to it. All right. So this is good. This is good. Let's get some stuff in here. Get it in, get it down. Now we have a really nice place to start. Okay, so now that we've got this more, it's a far extended scene than what we had before, which is great. We can come in. I'm gonna start accentuating this here as part of the primary part of the scene. I think I do want to extend the attention over this way. So to do that, I'm gonna get some more of that light value in there. She Was a Full Moon says, I love painting landscapes as well, and your work really inspires me to keep going. Keep it up. You too. Keep it up. Keep going. I'd love to see some of yours. Yeah, you should show me. That'd be great. Norik says, I like the colors in the stones in front are fabulous. Thank you. Rose, welcome, says, I love the composition. Or I like the composition. You just like it. You don't love it. I'm teasing you, of course. Thank you. All right, this is good. This is good. So our main attention is going to be here. And I think that's going to be really nice. Peach! Steve hates the composition. Steve would hate the composition. How are you doing, man? I'm doing good. I'm doing really well. That's a bit of a lie. I'm coming off of caffeine right now, and it's a struggle. It is a struggle. But that's how it goes. How are you doing? By the way, if anyone's on Twitch, they should go follow Steve. He's currently working on a marvelous Hogwarts composition, which I hate your composition, Steve, by the way, on Hogwarts. And I hope no one just joined in then to see me tear someone apart. No, Steve is great. Somebody asked a question before. It was a good question. How do you balance work, health, love, money? I'm sad some of my artist pals are struggling on those. That is a big conversation, which I'm happy to partake in. Rose, and I will. Rose says, of course, we'll love it in the end. Keep going and shut up, Steve. Hogwarts was so last week. Now back to dragons. You finished Hogwarts? I must have missed that. It's really nice. The whole castle thing was awesome. Okay, so work, health, love, money. In a certain way, they all push each other. Like, I try not to think about it as that they're all in competition with each other. Rather that they help each other. If I can do well in one, that will make me be in an emotional situation for the others to be doing well. I think because they could all take all of my attention all of the time and nothing ever be satisfied. Gosh, it's so hard. So I try not to look at it that way. But to some degree, if you're not doing well financially, that's really hard to have the time to do well in every other aspect. But it's a big emotional thing. Like, if I can be emotionally okay about everything, then everything is good. And so if it's an emotional problem, it requires an emotional solution, which means that I've got to learn how to feel like everything is good, even when it's not. There's so much I could go into for that. Steve says he's working on both at the same time, been switching between the two. Sweet. She was a full moon says, what's your zodiac sign, if I might ask? You can ask. I think it is Aries. I don't know what that means for me, but I think that's what it is. Danae says, if you got off carbs, I'm sure you could manage caffeine. Is it your resolution? It's not a New Year's resolution, but it is something I'm doing. Because I found, man, caffeine destroys me. But it is so good. Alright. So, now I'm in a position I need to figure out where the light's coming from. Okay, so I should have been doing that all along. But having started from an abstract place, I was kind of freeing myself from needing to know where the light was. Except, of course, that I've been acting like it's coming from above all along. And that's true. And I think maybe that's what I'm going to do, is I'm not going to have a direct light source. And if this is a night scene, then that would also be true. But, I mean, it's going to be very diffuse lighting, so all the shadows are going to be underneath. Which means that we're really working on local values to highlight things. As well as, maybe let's just call it moonlight. But local values is going to be our biggest thing. Steve says, you'll have to pry carbs from my cold, dead hands. Oh, I know the feeling. My hands were cold and dead, as it was anyway. She was a full moon says, you're a fire sign. You're very driven, always manage to achieve your aimed goal, which is a very amazing trait. Well, thank you. I would say that seems to be true so far. So I'm going to do a couple of things. Let's kind of get some... now that we know, we've established what the light is. So we have this cool light that's coming from above all the time. That means that our shadows can kind of have the freedom to be a little warmer. And where normally warmer sometimes means adding in lots of yellows and browns and stuff. If we're working in a blue, primarily blue palette, we're really thinking about adding reds in. Reds. Which is not kind of what you'd normally think. Norak says, it almost even appears to be underwater, especially the glow in the large stone and those flashes of light on the trees. Yeah, I see that. That would be kind of cool. A little fish swimming around here. Wouldn't that be awesome? That would be awesome. So I'm going to put in... get a little section, try and get some nice, like, almost purples to be our warms. Anastasia says, I already have to go to bed. Have fun painting, Justin. Looking forward to finished piece. Have fun watching, everyone. Thank you for joining. Come back again sometime. But yeah, thanks for joining, adding your 2 cents. It's awesome to have you. Dylan says, posters again or gouache? Somewhere in between. No, okay, so this one started out with 2 things, with watercolor and something called pass colors. Adriano says, oh, so here's everyone as alone over on Twitch. Oh, you joined on YouTube now. You're alone on Twitch? That's a lie. There's 11 people on Twitch. But yes, apparently there's a bunch of you on YouTube. Actually, I also got it working on Twitter today. So we have a bunch of extra people with us. Dylan says, good to see you streaming. Thank you. Yeah, so I started this off in pass colors. For anyone who doesn't know what pass colors are, they're a particular thing made by Shinhan. There it is, Shinhan. That's actually the poster color. Let me find... Here we go. Pass colors. This is absolutely dirty because it was going around in a bag of paints. And they've been designed to be somewhere in between watercolor and gouache, so that you have this kind of different transition period where they work really, really well transparently and opaquely if you do them thickly, which, you know, like a lot of things do that. The poster colors do it, but yeah, Shinhan sent me these, and they're beautiful. They're beautiful. I would almost use them exclusively. If I had to choose one thing that would be able to, like, just fit all of my needs, it'd be really nice. And then you could get lots of transparent stuff going on. Dylan says, I never heard of those. Yeah, I'd never heard of them too, either. I think I'd seen them on James Gurney. I think James Gurney has a little post on them on his blog. But I'd never really thought about them. Dylan says, do they function similarly to poster color? They function, I would say, a lot more in the transparent stage. Their transparent stage is a lot more rich than poster color. Poster color goes opaque relatively quickly, and that's nice. Adriano says, never tried Shinhan myself. James Gurney swears by them. Yeah, well, they're really good. Really good. Okay, so I'm enjoying this color palette. I think it's working pretty well. I'm gonna try and just get into this tree again. Like I want to get into one particular spot, but I also want to move around so I'm not leaving any place particularly behind. Dylan says, really good pigmentation. Yeah, and I think Shinhan's really proud of them. They put a lot of time into them. I think they're archival, so that's nice. Adriana says, I only use Winsor & Newton. Need to try out the brands. Yeah. I mean, I think, in the end, they're also similar. And it's relatively the same. So I wouldn't feel like you're missing out too much. But it is interesting to try other brands. I think it's a little more interesting even to try other forms of paint, which is really nice. Okay, so this is going pretty slowly. I'm gonna get a bigger brush. Let's try and move a bit quicker, because I could be here all day, and I'm finding myself getting a bit timid about what it is that I'm trying to do. So we're gonna come in. We're going to be either really brave or really stupid, which is the only way to operate with paints, in my opinion. Okay. Norak says, I had mentioned to the new gouache company G's Finest to try out. I'm sure they'll contact. You know what? They already had contacted me, and thank you for reminding me, because I need to contact them again. I think they're gonna send me some paints to try and review. So, thank you. I appreciate that. We'll see what that's all like. Apparently, some Winsor Newton colors are not light fast enough. The further along you go into this, the more you find that there's always great variation in the light fastness of any colors within any brand, and you kind of just need to be aware of that. No matter what brand you use, there's always some that don't really work. Steve says, that's my favorite combination, though I'm afraid I lost context for what you're talking about, Steve. Oh, you just mean like big and fast? She was a full moon says, do you sometimes catch yourself sinking into an art block sometimes? I don't, and I'll tell you more about that after I catch up with what everyone is saying. Steve says, are you doing any cons this year? No, is my very unfortunate answer to that. I don't have the capital I don't have any money. I don't have any money. And I don't have any money to invest in that right now, which is, I'm pretty sad about that. And I wasn't really able to make much money in conventions last year. I'll get back around to it. I love connecting with the people there. Fans and otherwise, just peers, but... let's see, Peach says, do you prefer comfortable, or am I more comfortable with traditional painting or digital painting? I prefer traditional. I get more joy out of it, I think. Danae says, do they dry matte? Yes, they do. I've only used gouache types a couple of times, and I was always tempted to clear coat them to bring out the color, but I wasn't sure if that was stupid. That's not stupid. I do that sometimes, but I've gotten more and more comfortable with them drying matte and changing values with them over time. Now we're art block, right? So one thing that I've always thought about, or that I've realized more and more about the idea of art block, is that I really actually think that art block is a little bit of a farce. No disrespect to anyone who thinks that they have art block. I find that when I have art block, what I really have is so art block is one of those other things that is like, it's an emotional problem. It's an emotional problem. It comes from fear. The fear of, well, it could be fear of anything, but it tends to come from fear. And so to me, the solution to fear is, if it's an emotional problem that has an emotional solution. And I actually think cultivating a sense of joy is something that has kind of removed art block from my life. If I'm feeling like I can't find joy, and I'm afraid of maybe like not doing this right or not being as good as last time, then I feel like I have art block. But if I'm able to overcome fear with joy, regardless of, how I think it might turn out, if I'm more focused on the process than the outcome, then I don't feel art block, which is interesting. I don't have that all figured out, but I stopped feeling art block a long time ago, because now I, instead of sort of trusting inspiration or trying to find my muse, I try and find my joy, and I can't find my muse. I have no idea where it is, but I can find ways to be and find joy in things. So that's my take on it. It's hard. It's not easy. But I think Crow says cultivating a sense of joy is a cure for art block. Super insightful. Yeah, and I think it's true. I think it's true. I only have myself as the n equals 1. I only have myself to tell you how that's worked for me, but I can tell you that it's worked for me. So that's what I got for you. Okay. I want to step back again for a minute, try to solidify some of these values. So one thing, here's another a simple thing that happens in these situations, is that if the light's coming from the top and the branches are coming out, a lot of the time there's a gradient on the tree coming down where it's darker up the top and it gets lighter as it goes down as more sort of diffuse light comes and hits on it, where those branches aren't shading quite as much or quite as acutely around the edges. So, oh, by the way, I don't have any branches in this thing. Dang. Okay, where would branches help me? Where would branches help me? I have this one, which instead of it just being a whole tree that's bent over, I'm going to make it a branch. By the way, she was a full moon. I'm not meaning to discount what you're saying. I know the feeling of art block is very real. I know it because I've been there. I've done it. I just think you can get into a spot of trying to fix it with things and situations that aren't fixing it. So for me, it helps to think of it as an emotional problem rather than anything else. I hope that makes sense, and I hope that doesn't feel like I was trying to attack you, or at least attack what you were saying, because I know that's a super valid feeling. Okay, so lack of branches. Let's get some more of those guys in there. And then I think think actually once we start to get these in here, we can fill out some of this space up here. It's going to feel a lot more natural, as well as more of those shadows up the top of those trees. Okay, very cool. Steve says, all right, Jess, I'm going to go make some art. Enjoy the rest of your stream. Thank you for joining, Steve's. I will see you or catch a stream or something. She was a full moon says, seeing your live now has really motivated me to get up and go painting. It's been a struggle. Yeah, do it. Go make some terrible mistakes. I was thinking this morning, actually, I was thinking about writing some stuff for a blog or to communicate somehow. That a lot of the time I think the fear for me comes with the idea of failing, and that as an artist I will fail. And the question is, will I fail near the beginning of my process, or will I fail at the end of my process? If I can commit not to making good paintings, if I can commit to failing really well, failing so tremendously well at the beginning of a painting, then I can move beyond it. I can expect it. When it comes, I'm not disappointed because I know it's going to be there. And then I can fail really, really well. I can just fail so tremendously. And then the rest of my painting is good. If I can do it at the beginning of the process, then it's less likely to happen at the end of my process. Danae says, you talking about light is what I'm here for. You're so observant. I think that sets your work apart. Thank you, Danae. If you have any questions specifically about light, feel free to ask them as I'm working or as it pertains to what I'm doing. I put a lot of time into thinking about light, and I know it happens a lot more it's an internal process now that happens intuitively because I've spent so long thinking about it and observing it. So I'm not always attuned to how to not think about it. So if you have any questions, go ahead and ask as I'm doing it, and that might help me to be able to communicate about it even better. Norik says, I think part of the issue is also when we give it a name, like art block, then also empowers that negative feeling. Then it's like we're trying to fight something that's concrete. Yeah, you're absolutely right. If we give it a name, aside from what it actually is, like if I gave it the name fear, then I could truly fight it as the fear that it is, if in fact fear is where it's coming from, which I think for the most part it is. Crow says, you talk a lot about value, and I was wondering if you more often think of value adjustments as an adjustment in color you're using, or as an adjustment in the ratio of paint or water on the brush, or something else entirely. Let me get to the next question, and then I'll come back, because that's a really good one. Peach says, my friend wanted to ask you this. Do you know any websites that do commissions besides DeviantArt? Everywhere you see artists, just ask. Just ask. So most artists will do commissions. Some artists might have a price point you're not comfortable with, but most of the time, if you ask, at some point the artist will be willing to do a commission. So there's no place that's kind of specifically for it. Even DeviantArt has the community built around it for commissions. But if you have an artist on Twitter that you want to commission, just ask him. If they're on Instagram, and just ask him. Some people don't want to spend their time doing commissions, but most people will have a price point where it'll be worth it for them. Okay, so back to value. Value is difficult because it has a lot of function to it. So it can communicate. I can use how light or how dark something is to communicate the shape of it, to communicate where the light's hitting. I can also use it to communicate the distance. So I can, a lot of these trees in the background, like it's trees all the way back, but I've lightened it. I've given them lighter values to communicate how far away they are because of sort of value compression. This is what I call it. Things get less and less value as they go. The difference between the light and the dark gets less the further away it is. So do you have any more specific questions about value? Because there's so much about that. So one thing is that if you look in old Italian Renaissance paintings, every object has a full range of value from black to white or black to however light they want it to get. And every object has that same sort of depth of value. And so some part of it looks a little cartoony because that's not really how things work. If you sit down, if you envision yourself sitting down in a chair in your car, and you look at the light, you look at underneath the dashboard, it's like black there. Use your peripherals to look at the value, the darkness of underneath the dashboard on the other seat, and it's not as dark. And then focus your attention on the other seat underneath the dashboard. It's black, and in your peripherals it's not as dark under here. So you have this idea that value isn't set. Value changes depending on where your focus is. So using that idea, I can say I want people to focus in this painting on this area. So I use a bigger range of values from black to white, possibly white if I want to go that far, to describe that this is where your eye is focusing on. And then over here, the values I'm using to describe this tree, the range between its darkest and its lightest points, are going to have a smaller range. It's not going to get to black. It's probably not going to get to white, or it might do, but whatever. You're going to have a different set of range of values in these different areas to describe where your focus is. So, yeah. That's something that you can unpack forever. And so if you start to look at modern paintings, or really anything post Italian Renaissance school kind of stuff, you'll find different areas in a painting where if you were there in real life looking at it, it would be full black to as light as it's going to get. But the artist chooses not to do that, which is a hazard if you're out painting and you're just looking, you're saying, yeah, that's black, that's black, that's black, that's black. When you kind of get around to it, that's not going to be the best way to paint or communicate. There's a lot of... you can get into that pretty far with then choosing how are you going to communicate where somebody's attention needs to be. It's really cool stuff. So that being said, in this area, today says I'm going to rewatch this whole thing again because I need to absorb your light and value wisdom. Go for it. Eventually, I'll get around to creating some tutorials and some instruction stuff that's about that, but it's such a big topic. But I also know so many people need that, want that, desire that, and it's not necessarily intuitive. So in this area right here, I'm going to be communicating a lot of that wide of area of value range. So I kind of like the colors that are happening here. I don't want to You guys are so kind. Decent Radical says, we're all basking in his light and wisdom. That sounds a little heretical, but sure. Let's... I don't want to break up all of these colors that are in here, but I want to add a little more of the depth and interesting stuff. Here's what I'm going to do. I have to always force myself to back up and try and look at the whole painting and not get sucked into these little areas. So I'm going to get this light, this kind of like light blue that I'm using. Boom, I'm not... Okay, there's my actual palette. I want to try and get in the habit of like showing you the palette when I get to it. Cobb, hello, welcome. Welcome, welcome. Yeah, so I want to not get sucked into any one particular small area. I am going to grab this light, and I'm just thinking about in this area that I'm highlighting and then extending out. And so the extension out, because I want this kind of round attention that I've set up with some of the branches and stuff here. Some of that light's going to go up here as it hits up here. Some of that light's going to maybe come down here and go up and back around. But because I have my light there, I'm just thinking big scale. Okay. Peach has a bit of a silly question. Does luck exist in creating and selling art? Absolutely. Luck is in... There's so much luck, but in a way there's like a sort of sense of cultivated luck. Like if we're thinking about creating art, right? Like I'm doing right now. The paint acting and working on its own is always going to be better than me acting with the paint. Like trying to brute force my way into getting everything that I want from the paint. So I need to like learn how to produce opportunity for paint to act on its own. So it's luck, yes, because the paint's doing its own thing, and maybe sometimes it's going to do something wonderful and just brilliant. At the same time, it's me creating opportunity for luck. Decent Radical says, I think you could use more orange. Fluorescent orange. Justin's undermining his own luck because a lot of his stuff would sell fantastically on ArtStation prints. Thank you. I'll get there eventually. I sell some prints on my own website. I actually did look into ArtStation, and I'll continue this talk of luck. I did. Oh, Lina Wolf just followed. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining the trip. Yeah, thank you, Lina Wolf. Let's have a look. So, luck. So, okay, that's luck in terms of me painting, but the same thing is true of kind of career-wise, right? So you could say it's just luck that somebody gets somewhere, and it's true. It's true. My success comes from my luck, but it comes from my luck and me providing my luck with the opportunity, me providing myself with the opportunity to have the luck in the same way that I'm providing my paint with opportunity to get lucky and come up with good stuff. So it's, I don't know, big mix. The thing with ArtStation is that once you start ranking among top sellers, you get free advertising. It's true. It's true. Gotta be honest. Yeah, so I looked into it. You don't get a great deal of the profit that comes off top, but they do a lot of the work. I don't know. It's a bit everywhere. It is something that I'm planning on doing, but in terms of my time and importance, it's just hasn't quite hit the top of it yet. Sumi says, hi, Sumiyasu. Sorry if I butchered your name. I think it could use more orange. It could use more orange. I could put a little more orange, a little reflected light under here. A little more orange reflecting sort of the warmth of the trees. Okay. So I want some of this light down here. And this light, yeah, okay, let's get back to our actual reference, shall we? Because, you know, we're here because there's a reference. This big, beautiful rock. Let's use it. Let's use it. So good. Okay. So, to some degree, if I want... No, let's just do this. Let's do this. Decent Radical says, just a floating traffic cone in the stream. That would be tragic. So I'm actually going to like just straight up rip off the forms in this. It looks like the light's coming relatively from above. So I can just do this, but I'm just not going to be using the warmth inside this stone. I'm going to be using where the light's placed. In a way, it's going to be flipped, reversed. So down here is going to be warmer, up there is going to be cooler. Sumi gives love heart eyes. Thank you. Let's do it. Straight up ripping these forms and shapes that are beautiful. So for anyone that's here at the moment, let me just, while I have you, feel free to get any of my tutorials on my website. They help me to have the time to do this stuff and share with you guys. I love sharing with you guys. I love being able to listen to you and figure out the kind of stuff that you need to learn and impart at least what I know. And you don't have to. I don't do it for the money, but it does give me time. It does help me to live. Or you can buy originals and prints. But I'm not here to sell to you. So that was that. Necessary sales pitches. Okay, so we're getting some of these forms straight off the rock, and it's lovely. So I'm not thinking about I'm not being really precise with how this is going, but I'm using the general ideas that I'm seeing. The general ideas that I'm seeing, and the really interesting part is being able to look in here and see the kind of the curvature of this rock as it's going up means that the place where the rock comes and rests down here, because the light's coming from above, gets a lot lighter, and there's a gradient that gets darker as it goes up and then lighter again as it comes across. So if I use that idea to say there's moonlight and it's going to hit across the edge of here the most, so we're going to do that. If I was thinking, I might have even created a little gradient in there, which I probably could do. It's this trick that I shared with you guys last time. If you grab a round brush, good old round brush trick. Round brush will naturally make a gradient because of the shape of it. Let me get it here. Because of the shape of it, this like wider spot around here is actually going to brush away a lot of the paint, and the edge is going to sort of impart the most amount of paint, and then this natural gradient ensues. And sometimes it fails me, but we're going to see. It's working. It's very subtle this time around. There we go. Danae says, I finally got paid for a book cover I did and just use it for... Oh, thank you. Let me know what you need. Actually, so I'm going to be going over all of the tutorials that I did and doing some questions and answers. So I know that there's some questions that I've gotten from that foliage tutorial that I'm going to be answering. So Danae, if you have any questions, if you watch it and you have any questions, let me know. Let me know in the next couple of days, and I'll be able to get around to making sure that I get some answers for that. By the way, congrats on the book cover. That's exciting. Where do you get your book cover commissions through? Decent Radical says the foliage one is great. Oh, you've watched it? Makes my heart warm. Yeah, so let me know as well. Send me a message, do something. If it left you with any questions, I'm going to be answering. So go ahead and ask any questions you have. All right. So now that we've done that, we can come back in with our light and highlight some of these spaces down here. That's closer. I probably could do an inverse gradient this way and end up with that. I wish we should get it a little closer. Maybe I can. Oh, I need a boom. A little closer, right? There we go. Come in here. Decent Radical says, one thing that bugs me about the foliage is that you spend a lot of time painting cherry blossoms, and most people buy it for the greens. I hear ya. I hear you. That is something that I've heard, and definitely something I'm going to be addressing. The concepts ring true, but I know the practical, that practical green needs to be there. So I appreciate you letting me know. I'm on it. I'm on it. Danae says, I have a couple older retired ladies who write books and they self-publish, so nothing big, but it's consistent work. That is awesome. Book cover. I did book covers for a while, and the good thing about book covers is that it's slow to begin with unless you find some like really good community somewhere that's supplying you with a lot. But eventually, authors like to stick with one artist if they can. At least a lot of them do. So eventually, after a couple of years, you just start stacking up repeat orders. So it's one of those things that always comes back to you. Okay, so that's nice. That's good. Let's see here. We're gonna continue up here. Let's see if this has any wisdom for us up here. It does. It does. One of the things I love about rocks is that there's always like, it always almost feels like there's like these man-made cuts into it. And being someone who paints a lot of organic stuff, I try and stay away from those kind of shape languages, but nope, it's really there and I love it. I could like always expand in my head the kind of visual library that I'm working from. Okay, so that's really cool. There's this other thing that I always have to remind myself is that the place that you get the most amount of detail, being that we don't always want to be just do detail everywhere all the time, the place that you get most amount of detail and that you always get the most amount of mileage from the detail is your transitions between light and dark. Because suddenly you have a lot of texture. Because, 1 second it's light, the next second it's dark, then it's light, then it's dark, then it's light, then it's dark. So as it's transitioning, you get this area where you have an opportunity to put in a lot of texture. And your mind kind of fills in that the rest of it has that texture too. So you don't actually have to do all the work, but you get a lot of the credit. It's kind of cool. Danae says, this one lady used me for 3 books so far and has 5 more written. There are about 25 illustrations plus cover, but I'm cheap because I'm insecure. I suppose at least you're aware that you're cheap because you're insecure. You don't need to be cheap because you're insecure. That's all I'm saying is, you got this. You don't need... I hope they pay you decently, because that's a lot of work. That's a lot of work. Decent Radical says all the sneaky tricks get the better value for your work. That's right. All of the things that make you feel like you've done more work than you actually have. So in these areas, right along here, these edges, I'm going to put in more detail, more like little spots and specks and pucks and everything, to make you think and feel like there's more stuff going on. Decent Radical says, The Future, it's called. Ooh, you know what? This is going to feel really good. I know what's going to feel really good. I'm going to get this light. I'm going to make it a little bit darker. And we're going to run along here. Hit up where this rock is poking through down here. Okay. That's nice. And once again, I found myself getting stuck into some detail. Well before I need to go into detail. But you know what? There's some emotional payoff to that. Emotional payoff. Adriana says it's better to be cheap because you're insecure than not try to get work at all because of insecurity. Absolutely. I'm with you 100% in that. Absolutely. I'm just glad you're getting work. A lot of people find it really hard to get work. So long as it's sustainable. If you could be sustainable where you are, then you're succeeding. If you could be more than sustainable where you are, that's freedom. It's kind of where I'm trying to be. If I could be a little more than struggling month to month, which I think maybe I'm starting to get there. But now I'm just trying to make up for all the months I didn't get there. Danae says, I have no idea how to value art. So, I have some thoughts on that. Especially commercial art, which is what you're doing, right? You're creating book covers for people. If you're creating something that has value for people, the trick is, it's not about how much value are you worth. It's also not about how much value is your painting worth to you. It's about how much value is your painting worth to somebody else, right? How much is your painting worth to somebody else? And can that sustain you? So when you're thinking about how to value your painting, the question isn't how much is it worth or how much am I worth. It's how much is it worth to this person. And if what it's worth to this person doesn't match what it's worth to you, then don't do it. But a lot of the times as an artist, you're probably more likely to say, well, actually, this is worth more to this person than I'm charging them. So I could probably charge them more. DC Radical says, one amazing trick is to always have somebody ready who you can refer your clients to if they want cheaper. It shows that you don't really need their money and people hate being passed off to an inferior artist. That is a good trick. Adriano says, I'm in the I need to get good enough first stage. I have some bad news for you, Adriano. You could be in that stage forever, and it's not about how good you are. I'm not saying that because I know what your paintings look like. I'm saying that because everybody feels that. I'll turn around and look at my paintings and be like, oh, not good enough. But like, who are you comparing yourself to? Who am I comparing myself to? If I'm going around comparing myself to Kim Jong-gi when I'm talking about how good at drawing I am, I'll never be good enough. And what does good enough even mean anyway? Who decided there was a good enough? Most of the time, good enough is, does my painting communicate what it is supposed to communicate? If it does, then you're good enough. And while that's, like, painting is such a hard thing. But chances are, you're good enough. I don't even want to say you're good enough because I feel like that's loaded. As an artist, you're good enough. Norik says, there's a wonderful bit of video by Rafi was here about exactly this topic. I listened to it 3 times already. Feel free to share it. I don't know if, I think YouTube will let you share it. But it sounds like we need that. It is a hard lesson. But almost like I was saying about before, like there's so many problems that are emotional problems. Not because we're being overly emotional, but they're emotional problems, and so they require emotional solutions, but we try to find situational solutions for emotional problems. Dang, it's also hard. Okay, so while I think I did get stuck into the detail there for a while, I think it was worth it. I think it started to pull some of this stuff together. So let's have a look. I want to try and find a way to get just a touch of, it's kind of like browny orange into this tree. I think it's going to set it off. It's going to set it off. But yeah, I know. I spent so much time struggling with the idea of what is the value of my painting. You think about it abstractly and you're like, the world doesn't need a painting. What is really the value of what I do? I'm an artist. I don't make life supporting things. I don't heal people or help people, but in a lot of ways, actually, as artists, art is about communication, right? We're communicating things. And so we do help people, we heal people, we communicate whatever we communicate. And you could communicate like an instruction manual, and you probably won't be helping many people except for the people that you're instructing. Or you can be communicating like a book that gives people confidence. Or Danae says, if my husband didn't work, I couldn't do art. I'd make just enough to buy more art supplies and a few treats. I get anxiety when I charge more. Usually people force me to take more as if I've offended them. Or, some you will... I hear you. Like, I've had people, back when I was starting, they wanted to pay more for it. In fact, people will feel better about the end product if you charge more for it. Isn't that crazy? They will feel better about it. What I've found in my time freelancing is that the less somebody wants you to pay, the more critical they are about what it is that you do, the more they'll want revisions. The more somebody pays you, the more they trust you to do your job, the less revisions, the less time it takes, the sooner you're able to get more work. Like, for real, there's this thing, people who don't pay you much will be your worst clients. Okay, there's going to be nice people who don't pay you much, but people will respect you more if you charge more. And not just like, oh, it feels nice to be respected, but like, they will pay you more, and then they can be confident that they've garnered a professional service, and they will be able to leave you alone about what it is that you do. It's crazy stuff. People have no idea what they want, and art helps them to find it, says Decent Radical. Free has no value. Very true. I found that with me, so like I talk about often, I have sensory processing issues, and all of my art ends up being about sort of peace and serenity, because I've had sensory processing issues, because finding peace and serenity is something that I have struggled with so much. It's like an area of expertise that suddenly people value, but they don't have time to do it for themselves. So I kind of consider myself in the service of, like, they don't have time to fully appreciate a place that helps them to get to themselves and allows them to breathe. They value it, but they don't actually know how to find what they're looking for in a certain way. I'm able to do that for them. Danae says, wow, that's actually eye-opening. I need to talk to artists more often. Yeah, talking to artists is very helpful. I mean, depending on the artists, some of them will pull you down just because they're at that same... If they're in the same place as you, then it's nice to talk and have company, but they might not be able to help you. But there are people who've been through what you're going through, and generally we're more than willing to help. Cub says, what's it like tabling at a convention? Honestly, tabling at a convention was very freeing for me, for a couple of reasons. It helped to free me from being worried about what people think about my art. So in one convention, you might have like 50,000 people walking past your art, judging your art, and they do it immediately. That's the first thing. People judge your art immediately. And a lot of people talk critically about people judging art, like it's something you shouldn't do, but it's something you can't help but to do. But they will walk past, and they will either... Rosius, welcome! They'll either absolutely love your art, or they will think you're the worst thing that has ever existed. Like, I remember people walking past my art and just giving me this look that's like, what the heck are you doing here? But it frees you, because it helps you to realize that there's nothing you can do. Someone's either going to love your art or they're going to hate your art immediately. And that means that, like, you know what? My friends and my family, they're the same. And, they'll pretend to like my art, but they won't really value it. But it took me out of the spot of expecting them to value it. It's like, no, they have this inbuilt feeling towards what it is I do, and either they value it or they don't. And to some degree, it's not up to them. That's just where they are. And so it took a lot of pressure off of me feeling like I need to please people, because either they will or they won't be pleased. It's nothing to do with me. Rosia says, love the painting. Thank you. So this painting is... I started off kind of intuitively, just throwing paint everywhere, and then I ended up using Google Earth and finding some things in Google Earth in Japan, in Tanegashima Island, to kind of help me, give it some life, bring some stuff to it. Oh, I love these roots. Let's try and put these roots in there somewhere. Danae says, when I toured a college and high school, the art professor spent a whole time talking about how artists are doomed to fail and never make a living. So I went to culinary school instead. I hear you. I did the same thing. Except instead of culinary school, I went to like audio production school. But I was convinced you couldn't make a living in art. And there's always stories. Adriana says, art's a very viable profession. Actually, it's getting better. It is getting better. That is true. That is true. The internet has done amazing things for being able to be an independent artist. Like, I'm here, painting, talking to you, being able to actually connect with my audience and develop relationships with people. Like, that's amazing. What was I saying? Yeah, so I went around to and I've heard this story in many places, went around to my local, like, art community. Like, so I live in this place called Clemson. So I went to the Clemson Art Center and started a conversation with them. And they're like, yeah, what do you do? I'm an artist. And they're like, oh, okay. So you're an art student? Nope, I'm an artist. Oh, okay. So you teach art? Nope, I'm an artist. So, like, they went through everything they could possibly think of that I might do that's associated with art, but isn't actually art itself. Go Tigers. Art Rower. Are you a Clemson local? Or alumni? But yeah, they went through everything that I could possibly be that's not an artist. Because they're like, you can't be an artist. Artists don't actually exist. Nah. Oh well. But that mentality pervades so much of everything. I was just really sad that it was like in the middle of an art community. The whole art community was like that. Nark says, I tried to be a children's book illustrator many moons ago. I couldn't get a job in that, so I developed a line of hand-painted clothing that paid the bills for about 20... That is so cool. Hand-painted clothing. I'm proud of you. Like, that's... I didn't mean that to come off, bad to say that I'm proud of you, but that is so cool. I just love hearing people doing what they love and finding a way to make it work. Like, much respect. Much respect. Adriana says, what musicians expected would happen with the internet and loads of bandwidth actually came true for artists. That is true. More Tigers from Outrower. Awesome. Cup says, anyone can do art. It's a matter of marketing, networking, and putting yourself out there. Everyone assumes that you just won't make money. Yeah, so I'm in this position at the moment where I'm so close to making a real viable income from my art. And for me, that means that I actually spend more time marketing and planning and working through the business of art at this point, then like I'm so tempted always to just work on getting better. Like, if I just get better, it'll be better. If I just get better, like, nope. Actually, if I just learn how to market better, then I'll have the time I need to do the paintings I want. If I just learn how to communicate myself and my art better. Danae says there's a girl on Instagram called Cherub in the Clouds who hand paints some amazing Ghibli-themed clothes. Ooh, that sounds so good. Norik says it was a compromise, a way to create art, but do it in a marketable way. Yeah. It's all about that marketing. Which, I wish it wasn't. But it kind of is. But if you can get it down, then you can do art as much as you want. And I know that if I can get it down, I'll be freed to be able to do whatever it is that I want to do, which is a really neat idea. Adriana says, have you looked into Skillshare and other learning sites beside Gumroad? I actually have. I have something on Skillshare. I'm not sure that I have anyone watch it. But Gumroad is very accessible for me. It's very good for the amount of money I receive versus the amount of money Gumroad receives. It's just a good deal, especially as I have at this point a decent sized audience that I can get people to go to my website and make a decent income that way. Decent Radical says, I don't like Skillshare. Gumroad doesn't require an account. Oh, good point. Good point. Okay, I'm going to step back once again, see what I need to do. Okay, I'm thinking about values here. Thinking about how I can differentiate things. So we have some nice shadows under here. I think this rock's going to need a little sneaky gradient. Just pushing it under the shadow of that one a little bit more. So that's really nice. Ooh. I have this line here that's kind of awkward, so I'm going to do something with that there. Adriana says, Norak, thank you very much. I will definitely be contacting with G's Finest. Thank you. Adriana says, I actually think Skillshare sucks, but I hear a few artists make some money off of it. Yeah, I think there's a right place for everyone. I don't think Skillshare is my place. Mod, welcome to the stream. You may have been here for a while, but thank you for coming. Do you have any advice for young artists trying to make a name for themselves in the art community? That's the question, isn't it? Question of the hour. But the answer is probably the best answer I could give you is the answer I've been given by many people and that I've seen as true, which is that don't try and paint to a particular market. Don't be like, okay, I want to paint like BioWare because everyone loves BioWare, so therefore I'm going to paint like BioWare. Or I'm going to be like League of Legends because everyone loves League of Legends, therefore I'm going to do League of Legends. Because if people want League of Legends paintings, they're going to go to the people who already do League of Legends paintings, and then suddenly you're going to look like everyone else who's doing League of Legends paintings, and you're not going to actually have an identity for yourself. Generally, the advice is do what you are really good at. Not because you love it. Like, not do what you love and then you'll never work another day in your life, but find out, be introspective, find out who you are and be that. Because that's the best thing you're ever going to be. That's what's going to come naturally to you. I remember actually one of my music teachers telling me that. I was doing something, I was learning how to improvise, and we were talking about, like, well, should I try and be like this or like that? And she said something that blew my mind at the time, which was, she said, you know what, I think Mozart would be really proud of what you're doing here. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, Mozart didn't make music that's like this. And she goes, no, he didn't. Mozart made music that came naturally to Mozart because that's what came naturally to Mozart after his training. He'd be proud of you because you're doing what comes naturally to you, and it's really good. And so, I mean, it's the same advice there. Figure out who you are. King of Losing. Who am I? Exactly. Who are you? Who am I? And at that point, you're not doing things that are derivative, though that's another topic, right? Not that you're trying to be original, but you're doing things, connecting with people who look and feel the same way that you do. Not look. People who feel the same way that you, that love the same things that you love. And they will always value the things that you paint because you love them, and they love them as much as you love them, and you're having this communication about stuff you love. And so you're excited about it, and they're excited about it, and they want to buy it off of you. Because they're excited about it, because you're excited about it, and joy is infectious. King of Losing, a toaster? I don't know. How much do you love toasters? Danae says, finding your art style and sticking to it sounds as hard as being self-confident and loving yourself. No escape from that. Art is emotion-based, is there? Nope. There is no escape. Because in many ways, art, you're communicating. Yeah. And I know this is more opinion than anything else. You're communicating about emotional things. And you're having an emotional conversation with whoever's watching, whoever your audience is. It's just inherently emotional. And it's hard. It is so hard. But like, you just try to have a conversation with somebody about something you don't care about. Just try it. It's terrible. You're never going to convince somebody else that you like something that you don't like. That you're excited about something that you don't like. People are amazing. They can see through you like a million miles away. So for a while, I tried to be a typical fantasy artist. Because I knew I loved this stuff, and this stuff is like, okay, there's fantasy, like, that's like this. And maybe sometimes my art verges on fantasy. But I don't have to care if it's fantasy or not. I just have to communicate about the things that I love. Okay. Taking another step back. Always taking a step back. I want to... I'm going to lighten this part up here. Right. Let's see if we can zoom on in. There we are. Okay, so there's this light that's kind of coming along here. And I have some spots that I feel like there's darkness there. The darkness makes sense, but is actually getting in the way of the flow of the piece. I remember once one artist, David LaFell, talking about light and shadow. And he was talking about shadow as something that blocks, something that it's supportive and it's there to support everything that's around it. But if a streak of light is coming through and there's shadow in the way, it's gonna block it. So what I'm gonna do, this is a value conversation, is I'm gonna lighten this up here so that it's going to feel like there's reflected light, and maybe there wouldn't naturally be all this reflected light, but it's going to be an analogy. It's going to be something that means that the overall conversation is more coherent. And because it looks good, I can't tell you that it's going to look good, but because it makes sense, because it doesn't block the light, it doesn't act as something that's in the way, it might not feel wrong. So we're gonna see if that's true or not. Danae says, my dad wants me to do paintings of oil rigs and call myself Big Ray. My first name is Rachel. Because around here oil workers are rich. I can't convince him that I'd rather eat rocks. It's hard talking to non-artists about this stuff. And you already know this, you'll get terrible advice from a lot of people a lot of the time. Philly, welcome, thanks for joining. Philly says, I always try to find myself in character art, but I found you on Twitter and I realized that I've never even considered drawing backgrounds or environments. Thank you for that. Yeah, no worries, I'm glad that you're here. Thanks for joining. What kind of characters do you like doing? Alright, so that is way too light, which is fine. Come in here and block that off a little bit. And that might actually end up drying a fair bit darker, so I'm going to leave it and see what it actually ends up turning out like. Okay. I'm going to get in the way of some of this shadow. Okay, and I think that's good. Oh yeah, this parallel line here, I don't know why, somewhere in my head, having this rock line that comes down and this like directly parallel root coming down, it's just not working for me. I think there's something, I don't know what it is, something compositionally that's like, that's not right. Danae says, I love the cool color you're using for the light. Thank you. Thank you. I've always loved Jeremy Lipking, Daniel Keyes. They have this purple that they use to basically cool off every light source that they ever use. And me, like 10 years ago, loved it, but at the same time would have been like, it's too systematic or something. But I think there's a place for it. Plus, I just love that look. So I'm always trying to experiment with how can I use that cool light. Because it's just, there's a place of beauty for that. Alright, I still feel like even though I've widened it and made it a little more irregular, it's doing something funky for me. But I think I'll leave that there for now, so I don't get too stuck into it. I kind of want to, I'm going to kind of make a bit of a rim light for these trees. For some places. And at the same time, like I was talking about with the stone for getting texture and stuff in that transition between light and shade. Oh no! Yeah. Danae says she's at the doctor's office, so signal's useless. I'll see you later. I'll see you later. Thank you so much for joining me, Danae. Rachel. I'm going to use this here. Philly says, I usually draw characters from shows or video games. Overall, I like simplistic, way more than realistic ones. I don't color much, so I only do sketches or hard lines. Sweet. That sounds really cool. I'd love to see it. Okay, so we're going to zoom out. There we go. I'm going to get some... All right, do some of these lines. Okay, and it's almost time for me to leave myself. So I'm going to do a little bit of this. I'm going to answer any questions you guys might have. And then we'll probably continue this next week. It's a bigger painting than I've traditionally done for all of this stuff, but I'm really enjoying it. There we go. Outrow says, do you prefer YouTube over Twitch for streaming? You know what? I don't have a personal preference. That's why I stream to both. Twitch kind of already has this inbuilt community that loves art. And I know people who would much prefer to use Twitch. I polled my audience on Instagram and Twitter about it, and they were pretty well divided. So I kind of figure, hey, why not? Why not do both? Do you have a preference? Well, you're on Twitch, so there you go. I suppose that's that. All right. I'm gonna start doing some moss. I love moss. I'm kind of gonna put it down really warm and then do some cool stuff over the top. Decent Radical says, without understanding fundamentals, you can't discover your style. I see the wisdom in that. I would say you're right. I mean, it's like, how can you have a style in writing if you don't know how to write? It's about learning how to communicate all the things you want to communicate, and then suddenly you can say the things that you want to say. Amy says, on the last bit of your stream, do you have an image from this painting? What I can tell you, this painting's been a bit different from the rest of the paintings that I've been doing on this Justin Paints Japan series. So this one has been, I kind of already had, I had just thrown down paint earlier on, and you know, I picked up this, threw down paint, and then just see what happens. And then and I do this with some stuff in real life. I'll take a painting and then I'll go outside and turn it into something, get reference, use that reference. Really cool stuff. So I decided I was going to actually do that with this one. Let's see. There we go. And this is the reference that I decided to use. So I already had this painting, and then I saw this rock, and I was like, man, that's so cool. So I decided I was going to put this rock into this kind of sort of scene that I did, and I think it's worked out pretty well so far. I'm going to come back, what's today? Today's Tuesday, I think. I'm going to come back on Thursday and we'll finish this piece. But yeah, I'm really excited about it. I do this in real life. I have a painting that I'm working on for a games company, and I went out and found some references. But I already had what I knew that I needed to do for the painting, and then I had the idea that you can go out and find whatever else you need for references and just for bringing an extra quality of life into it. So I love doing that stuff, so that's what I'm doing for this. I'm really excited. So I think this is where I'm gonna leave it. Next week, there's some. Next week we're gonna come back. There's some really beautiful foliage here that I'm gonna use right there to buffer some of the stuff that's going on here. Amy says, looks amazing, like it should belong in a game or a movie. Thank you. I appreciate that. I do some work for some games. I do some work for myself. But yeah, this is the stuff that I love to do. And unfortunately, I do have to go, but I'm so glad that you guys joined me here today. Let's see. Yeah, if you guys have any more questions, feel free to ask, or I'll